Camping under the stars is supposed to be a peaceful escape from reality, but sometimes the wilderness hides secrets that are far from friendly. Tonight, we bring you 5 spine-chilling camping stories that will make you think twice before pitching your tent in the woods. So gather around the campfire and let's dive into these eerie tales. Story 1. The Whispering Woods. It was a warm summer evening when a group of friends set off for a weekend camping trip in the Whispering Woods. They had heard rumors of strange noises that echoed through the trees at night, but they dismissed them as just stories to scare campers. As night fell, they gathered around the campfire, sharing ghost stories. Suddenly, they heard it, a soft whisper drifting through the trees, calling their names. At first, they laughed it off, thinking it was one of their friends trying to spook them. But when they turned around, they saw no one. The whispers grew louder, echoing their names more insistently. Feeling uneasy, they decided to head back to their tents. As they walked, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night, they could hardly sleep, the whispers surrounding them like a shroud. The next morning, they found one of their friends missing. They searched for hours but found no trace of him. As they packed up to leave, they noticed a small note left behind in the dirt. "I'm still here." Story 2. The Ghostly Camper. A couple decided to camp at an isolated lake known for its beauty and serenity. On the first night, they noticed a figure in the distance, standing by a tree. It looked like a man dressed in old-fashioned clothing, staring at their campsite. They waved, but the figure didn't move. Confused, they decided to ignore it and went to bed. In the middle of the night, they were awakened by the sound of footsteps outside their tent. They unzipped the door and saw the same figure standing there, closer this time, his expression unreadable. Terrified, they quickly zipped the tent back up and tried to convince themselves it was just their imagination. But throughout the night, the footsteps continued, circling their tent. When dawn broke, they discovered their belongings had been scattered outside. They hurried to leave, only to find the figure standing by their car, now smiling. As they drove away, they glanced in the rearview mirror, and he was gone, only to be replaced by a tattered old photograph of him from decades ago, lying on the back seat. Story 3. The Uninvited Guest. During a family camping trip, the Johnsons set up their campsite near a dense thicket. They were excited, ready for a weekend of fun and adventure. On the first night, as they roasted marshmallows, they heard rustling in the bushes. They assumed it was a raccoon and paid no mind. But as the night wore on, they noticed strange occurrences. Their food went missing, and shadows flitted between the trees. The next day, they found footprints leading away from their camp. Footprints that were far too big to belong to any animal. That night, they secured their food and went to bed early. Around midnight, they were awakened by loud banging on their tent. Heart racing, they unzipped the flap, only to find nothing there, just the sound of breathing close by. In the morning, they discovered their supplies had been rifled through, but there was no sign of any intruder. Feeling uneasy, they packed up and left early. As they drove away, they saw a figure standing at the edge of the woods, waving goodbye. Story 4. The Creeping Shadow. A solo camper named Jake chose to spend his vacation deep in the forest, far from civilization. He relished the peace and solitude, until one night when he noticed a shadow creeping along the edge of his campsite. He dismissed it as a deer and tried to sleep. But the shadow grew closer, moving stealthily. The next night, he set up his camera, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever it was. When he reviewed the footage the following morning, his heart sank. In the video, the shadow took on a humanoid shape, inching closer to his tent throughout the night. Paralyzed with fear, Jake decided to leave. As he packed, he felt a cold breath on his neck, but when he turned around, no one was there. He fled the campsite, but as he drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror to see that same shadow standing where his tent had been, grinning eerily as it faded into the trees. Story 5. The Camper's Revenge. A group of campers was notorious for their pranks. One night, they decided to scare a fellow camper, Tom, by pretending they had left him behind. They hid in the bushes, waiting for him to return from gathering firewood. But Tom never came back. Concerned, they split up to search for him, calling his name into the darkness. Hours passed with no sign of him. Just as panic set in, they heard a faint laughter echoing through the trees, sounding eerily like Tom's. Eventually, they found his flashlight, but no sign of him anywhere. The group was terrified. They packed up quickly and decided to leave. As they walked back to their cars, they heard Tom's voice, clear and mocking, calling for them from the depths of the forest. When they reached the cars, Tom was there, standing silently, his face pale and eyes wide. "You thought you could leave me behind?" he asked, his voice unnaturally low. The friends looked at each other in confusion, only to realize they had never pranked him at all. They turned back to the woods, but there was no trace of the forest. They were still in the campsite, only it wasn't theirs anymore. Camping is meant to be an adventure, but sometimes the true terror lies in what we cannot see or understand. If you enjoyed these scary stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling tales. Until next time, stay safe and beware of the woods.